Okay, guys, we'll get started. If you guys want to grab a chair in the front, feel free. Apparently, we were on screens throughout the expo as well. So put on your best faces. Hopefully, you've all put your makeup on so we look good for the cameras.
I forgot my lipstick. You got any?
Right, obviously. So, guys, firstly, this is the first time Isri have ever had a stage inside the expo hall, which I think is pretty exciting. Like, we get to do the podcast live. There'll be demos throughout the next 2 days of some cool new products and things like that that are being offered in the industry. John, you'll be up here again.
Yeah, I'll be up here today a little
you
later.
Make yourself really comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I got a cot in the back behind here.
Sounds good. So this is really cool. So thanks to Isri for making this happen. Hopefully they're going to do this every year so we can get in front of the crowd and actually speak to people, hopefully get some questions as well. But I think let's open up with how have you guys found this year so far? I mean, we're only day 2, but what's been happening on your side?
Go ahead.
How we found Isri so far?
Yeah. So how's the event been?
Well, we survived our party last night, so that was the good thing.
Good start.
No, look, so far it's been great. I think the convention hall looks great. I think everything is spread out, and I think that there's plenty of space to move. And I thought getting in last night, I thought the check-in was really smooth, and so I think it's gone perfect so far. I think they've done a hell of a job.
Yeah, totally agree.
Amazing. Yesterday before it opened up, we had the Isri provided the repurposed booth, and guys like Jay and those who helped participate, we got to, spreading the word, right? Podcasts, spreading the word. Isri is helping us do that, along with this amazing convention hall and all the people that are coming to these sessions. It's exciting, and so far first class all the way.
Yeah, it's been great. I love the space as well. Everything's flown really smoothly. I don't think anybody's waited in queues much. Sometimes people get that wrong, and I think this has gone really well. I want to open up really with a story that we've done, I think, I don't know what it is, 30, 40 episodes so far of Born Scrappy. And the one story that people keep coming to speak to me about is George's story about when he put in his first shredder and the bigger shredder, and the difference that it made on your business and how it literally catapulted you to a whole new level. So, George, for those out here that haven't heard the story, if you can just give us a kind of explanation on what exactly happened, what the impact it had on you as well, and how important, I guess, buying the right equipment is, seeing that we're sitting at Isri today.
All right, so look at in 2003, we had an old junk shredder we bought from Scott Newell, which was a hammer mill. He put in a new shredder, and actually the Simon Company, and he put in a new shredder. Their old shredder was sitting there. We bought it. We ran that shredder from 1980 until 2004, and so a long time, because we were a little tiny company. We didn't have any money, and in 2003. We decided we were able to borrow enough money to put in the first mega shredder in California. And so it was $10 million, and we thought it was going to take us 3 years in order to get to where, that thing would make sense and be profitable. At the time, we were doing 12,000 tons a month, and we thought that it would take us 3 years to get to 30,000 tons. And we had a plan of how we were going to do that, and we would be able to get there. And so we got the shredder in, and we've shredded our first car in November of 2004, and it just happened to be the timing where the market, the market was starting to run up, the volume and the economy and stuff were starting to pick up, and in December, the very first month we operated, we shredded 20,000 tons. In January, we set at 30,000 tons. And by March, we were shredding 50,000 tons a month. And at the same time, the price of shredded scrap, which, I'd spent my whole entire life selling shredded scrap at like $80 a ton, right? That's shredded, not cars. That's shredded, delivering it down to the dock, and you're lucky to make a few dollars a ton. On your Zorba, you didn't make shit on
That's Born Scrappy, you can.
Nothing on the steel. And all of a sudden, we're making like $100 a ton. okay, in your wildest imagination, you never had it. And so we were making more money per month than we'd made like in the entire history of our company. And I always say, and people say you got really lucky, and I agree, we got really, really lucky. But I always feel that you make your own luck, because obviously we took the risk. We spent 10 million bucks out there, which was more money than God to us back then. And we spent the money, and we put the shredder in, and we gave ourselves the ability to be lucky. So
Yeah, absolutely.
and that was life changing for us. So
Yeah, I mean, the timing is phenomenal, right? All the way up to 2008. But you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So it's kind of putting yourself out there, taking that opportunity. So many people out here right now are looking at different pieces of equipment and not sure whether they should go for it or not. I'm not going to tell everybody to do it, because you could come back and hold that against me if it goes wrong. And don't just buy any piece of equipment, but
don't buy any piece. You got to buy Sierra.
Sierra. Well, the next question is actually for John on that. So tell us more about Sierra. No, I'm just kidding. Tell us a purchase of a piece of equipment that has catapulted the company, similar to what we've just heard here, because you're selling equipment all day and you've been doing this for a few years now.
Well, it was my dad back in 1983 saw a baler in Italy. My dad always used his watch. Timing. How fast? How fast does it take to do this? Load a truck, load a rail cart, whatever. Time was always a factor for my father, and he saw this machine in Italy, and he brought it in to America in 1980. It got in 84, and it was changed the way we processed sheet iron in Bakersfield. And then people started noticing it, and my dad, the entrepreneur he was, well, I could sell these things. So, yeah, that one piece changed the course of my life, because I did not know I was going to be in the equipment manufacturing or distribution business when I was in college. I had no concept of that.
So, John, that's obviously affected you, but can you think of where you've sold, and you don't have to mention names, obviously, but where you've sold a piece of equipment that kind of propelled their volume that they handled, or allowed them to make a greater margin, or clean their material better, or something like that?
Well, it was the shear baler logger back in the late 80s when we started selling those. I can't tell you how many small operators in the heartland, Indiana, especially. One of my closest friends, Mike Lewis, back in 89, he was a very successful guy. He didn't have anything. He bought the shear baler logger. He could shear, he could bale, he could log for the shredders, and it propelled him, and as many others did. And so that innovation itself allowed the small guy to be extremely versatile, go to the markets where the bundles were needed, where the logs were needed, and where the foundries back in Indiana, back in the time, cutting 2-foot foundry cut grade scrap brought a huge premium over the Chicago mills, the Gary, Indiana mills.
Johnny's dad, in 1987, the health department shut down our shredder, and Johnny's dad gave us a shear baler, and just on a handshake, and kept us in business because we couldn't run our shredder. And that was 1987.
That's amazing.
Yeah, just think if my dad didn't, George, I don't know, would you be sitting here?
Exactly. He always get mad at his dad. He says, you could have just let him go out of business.
Yeah, you could have crushed him, Dad. No, but those are money was, see, that was the thing. For my dad, money was not his gig. He didn't care about the dollars, and he cared about people, his word of honor. And if he could help people, look, he came to America with nothing in 1935, got out of World War II, $90 in his pocket. He always told us that story. To him, helping people in the end was more important than always having your hand out, always having to make money.
My wife often mentions Lisa. She's done a lot of market validation and really got to know this industry over the last 7 odd years. She'll often say that the only real currency in this industry is relationships, right? It's something that can last forever, and it's about investing in that, right from the beginning.
I agree.
Just to add some value, because Born Scrappy, when we created it, was all about having the likes of yourselves on the show, but really adding value instead of just telling stories. So, well, we tell stories to add value as well. Would you say that anybody looking to buy their first real piece of equipment, right? Obviously, we've got forklifts and material handlers, diggers, whatever you might have. A shear baler logger is something that I've always thought as a starting piece of equipment is really important. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think look, there's a lot of pieces of equipment, and it all depends what you're doing. I mean, if you're a non-ferrous yard,
Yeah, absolutely.
okay, you may not need it. I just think you got to start. The investment in equipment is the investment in the future of your operation, because I can't tell you how many people would buy one style of machine that propelled them to get into another part of their business. I mean, look at George, okay, shredder. But now look at his downstreams with non-ferrous and his work, what he does with that. So it always leads to something else. So my point is what are you doing? What's your niche now? Invest in that. That's going to give you the opportunity to grow into the other areas. It could be a material handler. It could be just a simple forklift. It doesn't matter. Investing in your operations will open the doors to opportunity down the road, instead of just sitting idle, say, oh, I can't afford it. You can't afford not to invest.
Yeah. I found when I started my company in New Zealand, was starting from scratch. I got a shear baler logger to start off, and I outgrew it within 3 months, right? Because it's a great starting piece of equipment. But when you have too much volume, which is a great thing, all of a sudden it's like, well, now I can upgrade to a shredder. Now I have different equipment needs. So I like it, the versatility of it. I'm talking about mainly a ferrous yard.
Yep.
But yeah, you definitely get to a stage where you have to kind of look at other pieces of equipment. I wanted to carry on the adding value side of things. The markets are hugely volatile. They always will be volatile. We touch on in every episode, we talk about how we can manage that risk. So, George, obviously, with the amount of yards that you have, how do we manage market volatility risk, as well as obviously, that leads into inventory and stock management, etc. So, what sort of advice do you give everybody out here listening on that sort of topic?
All right. Well, look at one thing's for sure. I'm an operator, not a trader, and so it's really easy. Market volatility risk with me. I already know. I don't know what the price is going to be next month, and I already know that I'm not smart enough to predict the future as far as where it's going to go. So it's really simple. We try to sell 100% of every pound of scrap we buy every month. It's obviously not perfect, because you're buying like on domestic sales, right? You don't know exactly where the price is going to go, but you have a guess where it's going to go, and then based on that price, you try to guess how much scrap you're going to buy. It's you're not always going to hit it right, but we try to hard. I don't play the market. I don't think the market's going to go up $20 in the future, so we're going to hold scrap or we're not going to sell. I'm not smart enough. And if you're buying between 400,000 and 500,000 tons a month of scrap, if you decide to hold scrap, well, the next month you've got 800,000 or 1 million tons to sell. Well, you sure as hell can't do it. So we try as hard as we can to sell 100% of our scrap every month. It's easy to sleep. I don't believe in taking market risks. Doesn't mean you don't end up with some, just because you always have some scrap unsold. But we try our best to sell 100% of our scrap every month.
Do you have you've got multiple yards. Do you have some sort of KPI or a rule for the yards that they need to try and get to within 10% of their purchases or something like that? Did you analyze?
So what we try to do is we say that if you're non-ferrous, let's just say that you buy 500,000 pounds of non-ferrous a month. That means at the end of the month, you're allowed 250,000 pounds, 50% of what you're handling. And on steel, it's 10%, just the number you just said. So if you buy 1,000 tons a month, then we're saying you can have 100 tons of inventory unprocessed at the end. And we try really hard. And literally, we put out an inventory sheet every single day, and it's all color-coded, green to red, so that you can see the yards that are way off of their numbers on what they're going to do. And so that we can watch them and push them to get their scrap out, so that they're going to be out there. Because at the end of the day, you don't make a dime until you sell the scrap. You don't make a dime. 100%. And my guys are all on a bonus system, and they get no credit for inventory. So it puts a lot of incentive for people to get the scrap out.
And I also think to that model, when you're handling, every time a grapple or a magnet, something touches metal, there's a cost. And you prepare it, you stockpile it, and if you're not shipping it, you're playing the market. Well, the market's going to go up $5. Well, if you're double, triple handling that material to hold it for a month, you're actually losing it. You're losing money. So just getting it out the door. You know what the buy and the sell is. Get it out the door. Let the market play itself.
I can't tell you how many yards, exactly what Johnny said, yards I go into They've got the same 1,000, 2,000 ton pile of scrap that's been there for 10 years. And they buy the same amount of scrap every month and they ship the same amount of scrap, but they never get rid of that one pile. And they spend so much more money working around that pile. Ship to the ground, always ship to the ground. You'll never have a fire. Your yard will run more efficiently. It'll be cleaner and it just works better.
So I think I've heard you mention that a few times. I've heard other people through different avenues talk about that, but I didn't believe. I'm talking about people carrying a lot of stock, and I didn't actually believe it until I traveled around the US over the last few months. I couldn't believe the stockpiles that I saw.
Too much space.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an enemy to a processor to be able to say, oh, we'll put it over there, put it over there. If you go into Europe, they're postage stamp
New Zealand's
yards,
the same.
and they're moving it. They're moving it every day, and I think people get lazy with space.
That's right. We buy a yard. It's got 40 acres. It's got 60 acres.
You
They
still
will
clear it.
F up the entire property. It will have scrap from one end to the other, right? Ship it all down and then put barriers across and get yourself down to 3 or 4 acres because you don't need all that space and you're way less efficient. They can park roll-off boxes are out there, but you're operational. You put barriers up and you get yourself skinny down to one spot. So.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, my company in South Africa, 85 yards, we had the same 10% on ferrous. I mean, everybody was assessed on that at the end of every single month.
That's right.
And what I love what you said was we analyzed it during the month so that we weren't just, we often used to say accountants are just counting the money, right? But it's always after the fact. If you're monitoring it in the month, you can actually put effort into it. So you go, we're halfway through the month. These guys are holding 70% stock. We look at their sales. There hasn't been enough sales allocated to that yard. We know that based on this trajectory, they're going to end up on 40%. All of a sudden, you send a management team in there, and we look at how we clear that yard as quick as possible.
I think logistics play a big issue sometimes, waiting on a rail car.
Absolutely.
Or they don't pull, your rail spur holds only so many cars,
Yep.
and the railroad doesn't pull the car.
Mm.
Now you're scrambling. There are some instances, but you got to know your logistics. You got to know you can't ship it like at Sierra.
100%.
We cannot ship everything by rail.
Yeah.
All our volume in a month on iron, no chance in hell we can ship it all by rail. So we have to make, we have to get the containers, we have to get the indents, we have to do other things to get it out the door and not rely on just one.
But at least it's prepared, right? That's
Absolutely.
the key, right? At least it's prepared. It's one thing for rail cars don't come in or ships don't come in, right? Our Terminal Island facility, we're shipping bulk, but it's prepared, right? You go in and you'll hear the excuses about rail cars or whatever, and then you're looking at a 2,000-ton pile of unprepared, and you're like, well, big deal.
Yeah.
If you had rail cars, you can't ship that crap.
It had nothing to do with the logistics.
That's right.
If it's all sitting
Exactly
there
right.
oversized.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%. John, let's touch on what the challenges are that our industry is facing. You speak about it every day. You really are hugely involved in this. But I think for everybody to get a picture of what's coming, what are the challenges we're expecting to face over the next few years, 10 years, whatever it might be, and solutions. Like, how do we strategize?
Well, one of the biggest issues I think I see out there, and I've been in a lot of yards, they represent something other than what they say. You go in and they look like crap. Okay, I always say your equipment is the mirror to your company culture. The biggest challenge is for people in this industry to understand our image is terrible. So if they walk into your yard and it looks like hell, that challenge is going to stay because that regulator, that EPA, that DTSC, they're going to be on you, okay? So the challenges always are start at home. Let's clean up our act. And then let's start talking about what we do in a different light. And let's educate. We got to get out and do more education because the challenge to people who don't understand what we do is what hurts us the most because they want to call in California, they want to call shredders hazardous waste facilities. So our highways are built from hazardous waste. No, our hospitals are not built from hazardous waste. That's a challenge. How do we change the narrative? But if you don't have a clean act, it starts at home. You got to look in the mirror and you have to say, what do people see when they walk into my facility? I think it starts there, and then it morphs into all the other issues that we have.
Yeah, I think, you hit it on the head. Any changes we're going to want to make globally in the future, first thing we have to do is clean up our act. We don't even know necessarily what we're going to want to do in the future, and 10 years is a long time away. But to make change, it's going to be a lot easier if we have a great reputation, if we're seen to be a clean operation, a clean industry.
Well, look at the EU.
Yeah,
Copper is waste.
it's wild.
That is the craziest damn thing I've ever heard. All recycled materials are waste. That is just terrible. And we got to prevent that disease from spreading all over the world to where every time, every country, it's all waste. That's not going to help. And the mills don't want to be buying, quote unquote, hazardous waste, because some regulars say, you're buying hazardous waste, so your facility is a hazardous waste receiver. It's crazy. This is I think the biggest challenge that's facing us is our designation is not a commodity, waste. That's what I think is one of our biggest challenges.
So, John, we've got close to 7,000 people out here at the moment. What can everybody here do? Not everybody's going to have a podcast. Not everybody's going to set up an incredible, docu-series. What can they do?
When you're outside of your you have to engage your community. Okay, you have to engage the policymakers. All politics are local, they say, is where it starts. But if you're not out in the community, if you're not representing the community in a fashion that they know who you are and that you're actually helping the community, start there. And then it builds. You can't, how to eat elephant, one bite at a time, right? Start in your own community. Start it with your own workers. Make them feel safe. Make them feel that they are part of a winning team. And then let the community around you know your business is a winning business for sustainability, carbon decarbonization, et cetera, et cetera. All these buzzwords, but you got to learn how to say it. You got to learn how to play the game that way. I think that's where you start.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot more engagement on social media, obviously. That's only going to just grow. And I think somebody mentioned, I think it was Michael Goldstein mentioned to me the other day, that people are posting, but they're not necessarily considering what they are showing the rest of the world.
Well, okay.
Let's get into it, John.
That's my pet peeve. I tell people who know me because of my presence. I said, I love what you're doing, but would you please put a hard hat on? Would you put safety glasses on? Because you're in your yard jumping around going, yay, look at me. Yeah, you look like hell. You're not safe. I sit in Georgia. This is true. This is how friendships and relationships everybody in this room will have that can help. I did a video up in Canada. The yard operator says, you don't have to wear hard hats. Well, we had the vest. So I sent George this video. Take a look at this cool video. It was me and Edward. George goes, it's great. Where's your hard hat and safety glasses? So I never used it. So you will never see me in a yard without it. And people post their forklifts that look like just seatbelts hanging on the side. Drivers of the forklifts with sombreros on, drinking a cup of coffee, right? Forklifts that look like they've been through Baghdad, okay? It's just like, what are you doing? You projecting. You are telling the world I'm an unsafe operator. And it's there for the record. It's there for the taking.
Yeah. George, you've got a huge amount of people working for you in your operation, huge amount of yards. What are you doing in that way? What do you tell the team, whether it's just to, I guess, even be safer, but people are posting all the time. Can you I guess you can't control what they're posting, but is there any guidelines you give them?
We don't do social media like John does. So he's the master at it. So I don't think I've ever posted anything in my life. Actually, I know I haven't ever posted anything in my life. Doesn't mean I shouldn't, but never have. I don't even know how to do it, to be honest with you. But and so I see some of our people post at charity events and stuff like that, but I don't really see us post much stuff in our yards. To be honest with you, I never really thought about, as far as trying to control that, because it hasn't been an issue that's come up.
Yeah, I know of certain employers that it's not necessarily giving guidelines, but it's more about helping and saying, if you're going to post, these are the kind of things that are going to be good for our industry. Obviously, I guess it starts at home, making sure that you've got that right safety culture. So that when the photos are taken anyway, they're going to be wearing their hard hats and glasses. But I do know of certain employers that go, we'd love you to post. Just so you know, like LinkedIn loves it when your employees post as well. It gives you more juice. So people do like that, but they're saying, but when you post, we want you to make sure you've got safety, the place is clean, everything's looking really good.
Well, I think that's a challenge, a new challenge. Okay. It's starting to spread now. People finally realize your cell phone, a post is free. Picture, post, free. You're not paying for it. So I think companies, their challenge will be make sure what you put out there represents who and what we are in the proper way of doing it. And that's going to change. I mean, if people are, like I said, I've engaged people here last night and earlier this week about, hey, I love the fact that you're posting. Can I encourage you to think of safety when you're posting? Can I encourage you to take a look? It's going to change. People are going to get aware of that because it's still the Wild West with your cell phone and the internet. It's the Wild West still, and LinkedIn and TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. Those are a lot of platforms to control, and there's more going to be coming down the pike. So companies will probably start engaging policies, what they can. And I'll tell you what, how many people, when they go to hire people, look at these people's social media. They're hiring somebody and they see that they're chugging, a gallon of tequila and running in the middle of the street naked. Yeah, you're not hiring that guy.
On a Monday night.
Especially after Monday Night Football.
So the employee-employer thing is quite important to me because I do think more people, and I'm going to harp on this a little bit more, and I think it's quite valuable, more people are going to be posting, and that isn't just under the business accounts. People are going to be posting as individuals. They already are. I mean, Tim Ritterboss is in the crowd there right now. He's obviously representing Shapiro next to Judy as well. They're posting quite a bit. They aren't necessarily representing Shapiro, but they're representing the industry.
Right.
So I think it's really important as an employer if we can help in some way. And as I said, it doesn't have to be guidelines. We're not restricting them, but we're saying, if you're going to do this, we love that you're doing this because you're playing a part in improving the way that we're viewed as an industry. But we'd like to give you some tips on how we can do it.
That's going to be coming. It's employee behavior in the workplace. There's no different. HR. You can't do certain things in the workplace, right? It'll go into the social media platforms as well at time. It's going to happen.
Yeah. George, we're talking about challenges ahead. Can you think of any trends that kind of this industry is on? It might lead to challenges, but any trends that we're on there that we need to think about, innovation that we could kind of consider as well with that in mind. But what sort of trends can you see happening in this industry?
Trends for market, trends for equipment, trends for
absolutely any way you want to take it. Kind of, it can be any of those markets. I'm not going to ask you to predict the future on the market.
I'll start with markets. I mean, again, I've said it many, many times. There is tremendous new capacity coming online, and so I believe, right now, if you look at new steel, right, new steel is very high. I think steel mills are enjoying the greatest profits that they've ever got. They're having, like, my March back in 2005 2005 when I shredded. Steel mills are having that every month now, right? Most of them, because prices are so high. You got 232, you got all these different things that have stopped it, that have stopped the import of foreign steel. And so you add 15 million tons or 12 or 18, depending on who you talk to. But let's just pick 15 million tons. You put 15 million tons of new steel in this market, all right? Now, that's not foreign steel. It's not affected by 232. So the price of new steel is going to come down. It just has to, right? That's supply and demand. So the price of new steel is going to come down. Now, you add 15 million tons of new capacity, the price of scrap, those steel mills are going to need to buy that scrap. So the price of scrap is going to go up because there's going to be a shortage. I think more scrap will be imported from other countries. Other countries are going to stop are going to fight to not let their scrap be imported, which means I think scrap or recycled materials or repurposed materials or whatever we want to call it is going to travel long distances. And so I think the price of scrap is going to come up. I think the price of new steel is going to come down. I think the margins are going to definitely get squeezed in the future. I think that it's a huge trend, and I think materials are going to be traveling much, much farther distances. And so I think as far as equipment and that kind of stuff, look at AI is coming. I think a lot of us or all of us are going to be using robots for picking on our downstreams. I mean, I just think that's coming, and the I think there's tremendous technological changes, coming there.
What about traceability? I mean, in the supply chain, everybody's talking about traceability, and that's all good and well, but they don't buy scrap. Like when we're buying it, it's coming from every different avenue, right? So, how does traceability play a part for us?
Well, look
Either
at
one of you.
I think that I don't think we have to necessarily trace that it came from this auto wrecker or this industrial account, but I do think the steel mills or the cast houses or smelters have to be able to trace and know that this is 100% scrap, right? 100% material that's being recycled. And so that I think they're going to need to be able to do. I don't know that we need to get down to the nitty gritty of where the material is. Although technically, like cars, as an example, you could use VIN numbers that are scrapped because you keep track of cars being scrapped when you're taking them out of the thing. You could track cars being recycled, certain types of cars and manufacturers of cars. So,
As far as tracing it, I think mills want to know who their supplier is, and they want to know if something goes wrong with a melt, where are they pulling it from and where did it come from. But to go all the way back to the initial source, I see that as completely burdensome and a huge cost to. And I think, our facilities, we receive a lot of materials, right? Not everything everything we receive is considered great stuff, and so sometimes we receive materials, but we know where we're getting it from, so we can go back to who gave it to us and give it back to them or what have you. But it's still our jobs to prevent anything bad from coming in. Mills are going to be the same way, and to trace. You want to know who your good supplier is. You're tracing like Novelis, Bia told us. They know when they put a bale what's coming out. They know the recovery, so they are tracing their suppliers through their packaging, through the bales of aluminum or for the twitch or whatever they're buying. So I think ultimately the consumer knows where their product's coming from. They're going to trace it back to when there's a problem to who supplied them that material. Now, us as yard operators, I don't know if I'm going to be able to trace back who brought me that refrigerator that had a dead rat in it, and and got somebody sick. I don't know how that.
To me, it doesn't mean they're not going to ask for it. So I've already been asked on numerous occasions, can you trace where this material has come from? And that's where it kind of, how do we play a part in this decision making? Because the rest of the world doesn't necessarily know what we do. So when they are buying, it's, well, what is this material? Where is this material coming from? And what I worry about is that they seem to think that that's easier, said than done. Well, it is easier said than done. Sorry, they seem to think it's easy. And it's going to be very difficult for us, if not impossible for us to manage.
Regulation is that way anyway. Oh, yeah, you can do it. Well, it's already a burden.
Let's just sort out your microphone.
Earth the mic. Let George talk.
I think they didn't want to hear, the sound guys didn't want to hear from you. Just check it again.
All right, here we go.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to get to it.
Yes.
What kind of spotty? Go ahead.
Okay. So we're at an ISRI convention, 7,000 odd people, and this is a great opportunity for collaboration. Like, I love that this industry, compared with 25, 30 years ago, even 10 years ago, we collaborate a lot more. We are hyper local, which means we're only really competing with the people in our area, because the value of the metal has to be worth more than the cost to get it somewhere. So you're not really competing with people in other states. So we can collaborate, and we do, and we started to. Are there opportunities that you've seen for us to be better at that? And what should we be doing to kind of be better at that?
Collaborate with other industries.
Well, it can be industries, but also with other operators, so scrap operators, right? So
Well, George, you are classic. You are a collaborator. How many people do you let come in to see what you're
yeah,
doing? You
exactly.
never, you don't. George is an open book, and I've learned from being in his facilities, as well as some major players in this industry have toured his facilities. So that's the collaboration I'm thinking about.
So certain stuff like we don't think of a competitive advantage, and so things like stormwater, air, I don't feel like is something I feel like for the greater good of our industry, because when when one of our members has a huge public problem, it looks bad on all of us, right? So like at Terminal Island, the we have regenerable thermal oxidizers, right? RTOs, where we're burning the gases. And so I can't tell you how many people have come in to look at ours. We've been an open book on that. Our stormwater program there at most of our yards, we let anybody come in and look at what we're doing on stormwater to try to help them. And so, I talk about fire safety all the time, about getting down to the ground on piles and stuff, because I think that helps our industry. And so we certainly collaborate that way all the time. You're not necessarily going to show, your latest new technology, unless you're selling equipment like Johnny is, but you're not going to show your latest, technology developed. But I think that for the greater good of the industry, I think those type of things I almost look at it as public service, that what we need to do to make our industry better.
So, for instance, they're literally a half a mile down the street from us. We're competitors. Okay. We throw punches at each other every day, it seems like. But you know what we learn from each other? What kind of sweeper? What are you using to use in our facilities to sweep up the dirt? Vacuum sweepers, how important it is. Well, he showed me that. We use that now. Now our stormwater, we have got to baseline to where we can infiltrate now and not be a discharger of stormwater. And that's collaboration amongst what we can do to be better as a whole as an industry, because it really is true. If something happens down the street at his facility, it's coming back to me and vice versa. So, hey, let us work together to keep people off our backs, to be safer, cleaner. Environmental stewardship is important to all of us, because he's under a microscope because he has a shredder in California. Well, that means all of us, they're coming after us sooner or later. And it's not his fault that he had the shredder, but it's talking about, hey, what are you doing to keep your facility clean? A vacuum sweeper. That's just an example of what collaboration looks like in all over this country.
And I think it's important to reiterate on that, because if George and John are letting opposition and other people in the industry tour their facilities, there's absolutely no reason why any of you aren't. Like, I know is maybe, I'm going to make up a percentage, but 80% of you out there don't allow people into your yards if they're in this industry. And that's very common practice. Like, it's just, you can't come in because we have these secrets. There was somebody on my podcast a few weeks ago, and after she was on, her father, because she was the second or third generation, her father contacted her and said, "Why did you do that? You've just given away all our secrets." Like, those days are gone, guys. Like, help collaborate, work together. If we as an industry are going to do better, we have to do it together.
Well, I agree. Look, I love people coming to my yard, because I just say, look, I'm proud the way we keep our yard. My dad's nickname was Mr. Clean. Okay. Well, we've kept that, and our yard is a very clean yard. You could drive through it. It's, like I said, it's swept. It's a very clean operation. It's I feel that people can be encouraged that this is how a yard can be kept. And I'm learning from other people who do other things to make our operation better. So these types of collaboration, I think it's imperative for everybody in this room. I have friends all over the U.S. So does George. Why aren't we trading best practices, our BMPs? Because we're going to be better. And if once our industry gets better in that way, things start changing the narrative to a better way for us.
When I wrote my book, I can't tell you how a bunch of people in the company said, "You're like giving away all our secrets. Why are you doing that?" But okay, I give it away to everybody.
Yeah.
At the Scrap Expo, I think I gave away like 300 copies last year. So.
Yeah, and I think it's the only way to make ourselves stronger as an industry is to get together, work together. As I mentioned earlier, even if you don't want to show your opposition, we're not asking you to invite the person who's maybe next door, who's buying from the same trade as you. You don't have to do that, but reach out to people in other areas, work together.
Well, you want it, kind of a jokingly way, but if you have a clean, really super clean operation and your competitor doesn't, invite him in. So now he knows he has to spend money doing something over there. So you can cause your competitor to spend some
Yeah.
money.
So one of the big talking points when I traveled the US recently was the workforce. So was getting enough. Yeah, exactly. You're pulling that face immediately. Getting enough of the right people in this industry. What are you, George? How many people do you employ?
I think we're 3,500 right now.
Okay. So what are you doing to ensure that you have um, people coming through all the time? That means when they're inside being developed to come through into management roles, etc., and also bringing in from outside. I want to hear obviously from both of you on this, but George, you've got a huge amount of people. You must have some sort of process that you're doing or something you're doing to keep them coming in.
Well, look at first things first, right? I believe with all my heart that our employees are the people in our company, our most valuable asset, right? There is no company without your people. And so, and then you've got to honor those people, right? You've got to treat them right. And you can't just talk the talk. You've got to walk the walk, right? You've got to truly believe that these are the most important people in the world to you, right? Every single employee in my company has my cell number, every single one. Okay. I mean, if we buy a new company, I go into the lunchroom and I write my cell number on the board. And you'll go back years later, it's still there. Okay. Everybody gets a copy of my book with a letter that's got my cell number in it. And I print my cell number in the cover of the book. And so all my employees can call me. And if they're unhappy with something, call me. And so I think you've got to treat them right. You've got to be accessible. You've got to incentivize them. We have a bonus program which all employees participate in different ways, and I think you got to be there for them. And I think you got to treat them right. You got to take the high road, right? I tell my HR department all the time: if in doubt, just err on the side of the employee. There's nothing to talk about, right? If you're not sure how something can go, err on the side of the employee. And so they are your most important asset, hands down. It's not location. People talk about all this crap. It's your employees.
So
My opinion.
that's look, I totally agree, but that's great when they're in. How are you bringing people in? Because there's always going to be churn. People are going to leave. You need more people, or you're growing.
Well, okay. So what we're doing, first of all, if you have a company culture that your employees feel like George is making them feel part of a team. I feel the same way. My dad told me as a young man getting into the business, you treat your employees with dignity and respect. Start there. But what we're doing, we're using social media to show because we celebrate our employees. We put them out. I got Vanessa over here. She's got some killer new posters that are going to be coming out because we celebrate our people. And when you show it and they're out there and their friends and family, they go, that's a cool post of you out there. There's a sense of pride that goes with it. So attracting talent, okay, keeping it is one thing, right? You got to do the right thing. You got to pay them right. But to attract, people have got to know that company looks cool. I think that's a great industry to work for. And if you're not messaging that's why, again, I put my forklifts out there. Why? No scratches. I want to attract people who want to come to work in a facility that cares for the equipment. You got to put it out there. You can't be the best kept secret in your community. You have to get out there and show people, hey, coming to work for Sierra is a doggone good place to work. The culture is good. The environment's good. Safety is important. The equipment you're going to operate is safe, clean. There's a sense of pride that goes with that. And that's what we're doing.
I saw the pictures. I remember you posting with these machines still clean, no scratches. It's like I'm not sure what country, what world this is from, but those were incredible.
Even George was shocked.
Yeah, they're impressive. I gotta agree.
So, and what about bringing people through, right? So, I mean, just to touch on what you're talking about, I went to visit Alta Trading, obviously Jay, Michael, Robert, and really, yeah, Michael's over there. Jay was here earlier. They've got people 30, 40, however many years that stay forever, lifers, right? And that's all good and well. And that's what we're talking about now. And that's incredible. And it's about having that culture, which I think they've got right. And you guys have got right too. And I think for anybody out there listening, really getting that culture right will keep your people. But how do you develop them internally? Like there's not there, yes, there might be scrap university, but once they're in the operation, how are you training them, making sure they can progress or have the opportunity to progress?
Look, we always try to promote from inside. We're not trying to bring people in from the outside, unless there's just nobody else that we can find from that. So we try to promote from the inside, and we try to give the people the opportunity to encourage them to move up, to do different things. And we'll have people shadow people. We'll have people train with them. And then, as we're acquiring new yards, then we'll allow people to move up into them. But look, attracting people is the most difficult thing, hands down, and especially in our industry. And as much as you want to glamorous, you want to make it, the people still look at it in the wrong way. And so, we're using, luckily for us, we have a really good reputation. And so it's easier for us to hire experienced people because they know the name and they know SA. And so, people want to come to work for us because they know how we treat our people. It's harder people that are outside of the industry, but it's interesting that how today with social media, how many people do the research before they go to work in a company. I can't tell you how many people I talk to that have gone on our website, listened to our speeches, listened to speeches of our people, and that are on there and make their decision to come to work with the company because of what they hear and read. So,
yeah, I want to do what we do as well as we show the employee, promote within. We also give like our technicians for the people who are out installing our equipment. You can't hire them. You can't hire a tech who knows how to work on your equipment. We bring them in as tier 3s, and they have a skill level you get to hear, and your pay will increase based on your capacity. And those are good paying jobs. And it's same in the factory. So, an apprentice welder is going to make X, but when you become the master welder and you become a lead of fabricating frames of our 2-ram balers, for instance, that guy has a pay scale, and he knows it when he starts what that is. If I, aspire to be that guy, I know I can make this. Yeah. So we're doing that as well.
Yeah, it's important for them to see their journey, where they can get to. That can motivate them all the time. On what George was saying about bringing people in, it kind of comes back to us all working together again. If we want to attract the next generation, we need to put out a really good picture of what we do. We need to show that we're safe, we're clean, we're having an impact on the environment. That will help us attract in general. And also what George said was, we're surprised. Some people are surprised by how many people are doing their research before applying for a job. I think everybody's doing their research now before applying. So if you haven't worked on your website or actually on your own persona or kind of what your business looks like outside, there's a good chance you're struggling to attract any of new recruits.
Well, not everybody does their research. We were hiring for a location for RSM, and so one of the first questions on the interview was, well, what do you know about our company? Somebody else asked that. They go, well, they didn't go out. They didn't do their research. Well, guess what?
They didn't get the job.
Oh, they weren't even. It was over. The interview was over in 10 minutes because we went, if you're not going to come prepared, you don't want to see who you want to work for. Why are you here?
Yeah. So the right candidates will do their homework. So it's kind
there you go.
Make sure that you're putting out the right picture, because the right people you want will do their homework. Guys, we've got 10 minutes left, and we do have a hard stop. Because this is the first time we've ever done a podcast live, and the first time Israel's ever had this stage up before, I wanted to open it up to hopefully 1 or 2 questions, depending on how long they go. Does anybody want to ask a question that we maybe haven't touched on yet?
Somebody's going to have a question.
On the right.
I couldn't hear it.
So the question is, in anticipation for electric vehicles coming obviously more prominent, what do you recommend we do to, I guess, avoid the issues that we could have with that? Is that right? how better do we prepare for EVs?
You're the
coming
one
on
who's
board?
going to be handling a lot more of them.
Yeah, look at I think that's still a learning process. You know, a car with a lithium battery inside it that's not just charged is a bomb, right? And if your guys do it wrong, it's really easy to get killed. And we've taken a lot of them apart. And you know, you've got to have really specialized people that know how to do them. Now, obviously, if you discharge it, it certainly helps it. But I don't know that they've exactly that there is the best way to do it that's not super labor intensive. You know, that you would people would almost have to pay you to take the car by the time you're going to, you know, hire the people to really take it apart. Personally, I just want to shred the damn things, but you know, my environmental people are telling me like not only no but hell no. But maybe when someone's not looking, I'll try putting one through there. But look at I don't think there's a really economical way to do it right yet, and I think there's still a lot to learn. I think Isri's doing a couple seminars on this thing here. I know a bunch of our people are going to them, and so I don't know that we as a company have the right plan yet for that, and we're still studying it. Right now, those kind of cars get set aside. So,
Did you want to say something, John? Sorry, I thought you.
No, I just think it's a great question. I think my thought process would be the manufacturer of these batteries have to be part of the solution because it's really being dumped upon the recycler, the people who operate, you know, the materials recycling facilities like ours, to figure it out. If you're going to make a product so great, figure out how to end of life it as well.
Yeah, but it comes back to what voice do we have if we're not together, if we're not cleaning up our act, you know, with what John's doing at the moment, if we're not helping John really progress in the way that we're viewed globally, we're not going to have a voice at these things, and they're just going to do. They won't listen unless we really have an impact on our change and the way that we're viewed.
Just got to get involved.
Yeah. We probably got time for another question. If anybody else had something for these guys, there we go in the buddy cap.
I can't hear. Can you come up here so we could at least hear?
How can he get a copy of George's book?
you know, if you just email me, I'll send it to you. It is on Amazon, but I don't necessarily. I mean, it's there just so people get it. The book's called Create the Connection, but if you email me, it's gadams@sarecycling.com. So you know our company is SA Recycling. It's just my first initial, gadams@SA Recycling. You email me, I'll send it to you. Obviously, you can buy it on Amazon, but I'm not trying to sell my book or make money. I put it on Amazon so that people that didn't know me would have access to it. But if you email me, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, let me.
gadams@sarecycling.com.
So people ask me where they can watch Repurposed. Yes, it's on Amazon Prime, right? Great. Woohoo! You could get it for free on the Sierra YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yes, if you guys didn't know that, and that's a great way to get it out to family members, staff, on the Sierra YouTube channel.
Or the Sierra app. If you download the Sierra app,
got you.
It's you can actually watch it right on your phone if that's what you want to do.
So I have a question since we have like one last minute. Okay, for really both you guys. So now that scrap is a bad word, is it going to be pile of repurposed material? Is it going to be born repurposed material? Just curious, you know.
Well, we're actually talking about because Abby Goldstein, Michael's wife, has been doing a lot of clips on LinkedIn lately and taking over his role. And we were trying to work out, him and my wife, we're going to do a few clips and work out what their name is. So it was going to become Material Girls.
There you go.
It was going to be Iron Woman or Material Girls. So Michael came up with Material Girls to
well, I'm just going to drop the S and scrap, so it'll be a pile of crap.
And I'll be born crappy. All right, guys. Thank you so much. It's been lots of fun. I'm glad we got up on stage, and hopefully we do this every year.
All right, Stu. Great having you.
Thank
Great
you,
being
guys.
here, man. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.